We're at an inflection point right now because of the rapidity of movement, because people can move so quickly. Information can travel so quickly. People can up and relocate so quickly. All that's doing, even though it makes certain things more convenient, all that's doing is making everything faster and faster and faster and faster. It's like watching, like in the bathtub when you pull the drain. When the water is circulating the drain, it moves slow around the outside, but the closer that it gets to the drain, it speeds up. And that's kind of like where we're at. This synergy of generations, this inflection point where we're at the point right now where information can be moved at the blink of an eye, where I can reach out making a video right now and someone in Thailand can listen to me. Someone in Argentina can hear me. Thoughts are so powerful. And when they're exchanged so quickly, the ability of history to be made, defining moments to be actualized and realized at this pace, it is dizzying when you think about it. Really dizzying. Never before in history could a little girl in the southern mountains reach out and connect with someone from clear across oceans and time zones in completely different places of life. When you combine this ability to move information and this dizzying pace at which we're speeding up, I see this next act of humanity facing a series of challenges, like the same essential principles, but manifesting as challenges like what we've never seen before. So Ecclesiastes, it says there's nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes is one of my favorite books of the Bible for many different reasons. But there is the heartache that man has experienced, his problems, his travails, his joys, his sorrows, his elations, his benchmarks for life, the things that keep him awake at night, the things that he dreams about and longs for. The essence of these things has not changed since the dawn of time. The ability to actualize them and the mechanisms with which we do so, that has changed astronomically over the past 120 years. Think of transporting someone, our ancestors, our fourth, fifth great grandparents. Think of transporting them for a half a day into our daily lives now. Would my great-grandfather, would he be able to recognize things in the world in which I live compared to his own? And how much difference would his great-grandfather have between those two generations? When I look, for instance, reflecting back, and leave me a comment, let me know if you've thought about something similar, like with your own family. I'm a pretty deep person genealogically, like that I draw a great source of strength from that personally. But I think about my own grandfather, and I've spoken about this before. I'm the seventh great granddaughter of Colonel Adam Alexander. He was one of the signers of the Mecklenburg Declaration, which was outside of the state of Franklin in Tennessee. It was the first Declaration of Independence in the New World from the Crown. And I think about my grandfather, Colonel Alexander, and my grandmother, and I think about the world in which they lived and the challenges which they must have faced in North Carolina at the time. You know, the Mecklenburg, which is the Charlotte area, it's still to this day, it's a very influential area within the state. But I think about my grandfather and what he must have thought and what he must have been thinking when he laid his head down at night and his worries and his concerns? And are they similar to my own? What is similar? And would he recognize my world? I think he would recognize me. He would know me, because you're like your kin. Whether or not you realize it and whether or not you want to own it, we have a lot in common with our people, the generations that came before us. But his world was at such a slower pace. When you listen to, in particular, actually, slave recordings, like the old phonograph recordings from slaves from the Old South, and really just people who were fought like war between the states veterans, not revolutionary veterans, war between the states veterans. When you listen to the way in which they describe their lives and the pace of their life, I've listened to several recountings where people said that they didn't even keep track of dates. Life was slower then. And yet, the cycles of war and famine and disease manifested themselves, but they did so at a different pace. Now, we are in such a time that from our phone, we are alerted every single time, if we elect to do so, that someone says something, or one of our friends does something, or posts something, or we have this meeting today. And in so many cases, every single minute and hour of our day is blocked out. The speed at which we live our lives is accelerating to I would say, an untenable pace. And over this past year, I think the clarity that has come, and not necessarily from a good thing, but there's a redemption even in our suffering. The clarity that has come from people being forced to stay at home for whatever reason, electing to stay at home, staying at home, taking their children out of public school, and for the first time perhaps seeing just what their children are being taught and recognizing, I have authority over this. I have control over this that I have hitherto not been exercising. I choose to exercise it now because it's affecting my children. It will affect my lineage. It will affect my family's destiny. Thoughts are powerful things. What we choose to dwell on is powerful. Ideas are incredible things. And when they can be transacted and sent at lightning speed, change that results from them and their wide adaptation and acceptability for the good or for the bad happens at a dizzying pace. And so, bringing it back to the time we're in now, while it's comical and funny to say that the but is the word that differentiates between the real conservatives and the fake conservatives, I think this, but that clarity, that crystal clear clarity, the ability to look into a situation and discern the outcome and the essence of a decision is that much more critical now. We don't have the luxury any longer of muddying the waters and calling ourselves, I'm a conservative, but I'm for reasonable restriction. Oh, I'm a hunter and pro 2A, but I think background checks are reasonable. It's not what you think or I think. It's not what we think. It's what is the outcome. Does this expand government power or does it restrain government power? Well, gee whiz, Patriot Nurse, you're getting so uptight about this. You're so passionate. You're mad. I'm not mad. I know patterns of history. So do you. That's why you're watching. It is no accident that you're listening to me tonight. There are no coincidences in this. The outcome of the choices and the thoughts that we indulge has tangible, real, concrete impact on the lives of ourselves and our families and our children and our legacy going forward. If we make choices and muddy the waters to the point where expansion of government power becomes acceptable, the ability to check that expansion becomes less and less accessible and actualizable. When government power cannot be checked, that is tyranny, slavery, oppression. These things matter.